Thank you so much, and good morning to everyone. And let's again give a round of applause to our young MCs for this morning. Thank you so much. We got so inspired when we see young people, leading us all this morning. So welcome. It's a good morning for me, and also warm welcome to all of you this morning to the second day, of course, of our conference, day 2 of the G20 Interfaith Forum. We are so delighted this morning just to begin our plenary discussion titled Education, Leading Human Development Imperatives. I always want to basically begin by thanking those who are behind these efforts. It's so critical. You just heard my good friend, Professor Marshall, and of course, our good friend, Professor called Durham. Professor Durham is in Utah. He's not with us here, but I hope he's watching. We want to send to him a very warm thanks and appreciation as well. So, of course, I cannot forget the local organizing committee, an amazing job, right? We're all so happy that we're here. The organizing committee did an amazing job. So thank you to our local host here. As you will hear from our esteemed speaker this morning, education is not only a pathway to knowledge, but also the foundation for teaching values, fostering social cohesion, and building mutual respect and understanding. Education is the foundation, I call it the foundation, for achieving nearly every discussion happening here at this conference. So from eradicating poverty and hunger, to harnessing emerging technologies and addressing climate change, it is a cornerstone. It is the cornerstone for achieving our shared goals. So this morning, before we begin this panel, we are so honored to be joined by Professor Abdul Moti. Professor Abdul Moti is the Minister of Primary and Secondary Education of Indonesia. He also the Secretary General of the Muhammadiyah, one of the largest Muslim organizations in the world. So Professor Abdul Moti, welcome with your keynote. Give us the foundation, and then the panel will follow. Welcome. I am just keeping with the tradition of the G20, not making a long introduction, but I can go the whole day talking about his qualifications, Professor.
Thank you, Muhammad. Part of my presentation already presented by Muhammad.
Come on.
So I just present what is actually the rest of the presentation of him. And to be keynote speaker, key means small, so it's actually also in line with my body, who is also small. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning.
Good morning.
Excellencies, eminences, panelists, and distinguished speakers and participants. First of all, allow me to extend my sincere thanks and appreciation to the organizing committee, especially to my two good friends, Professor Cole and also Dr. Catherine Marshall, the two important persons that invite me and has become my very good partners from many different occasions in many different meetings of IF20. And also Dr. Muhammad El Sanusi, I think I've just met him in Jakarta in my office, and he always handsome as today. Usually he greet me with a very eloquent Arabic, but I'm afraid this forum is actually not for the presentation in Arabic.
Yeah.
So, when we speak about education, we believe that education is the most effective path to building a civilization. The essence of building a civilization lies in the nobility of ethics, moral, and character. Education is a continuous process to nurture the nature of mankind as Homo educandum in order to become holistic well-being. Every human being on this earth deserves education. No child should be deprived of schooling because of economic reasons, geographic location, physical condition, gender, or more importantly, because of differences in ethnicity, race, or religions. In a multicultural and multi-religious society, cross-cultural religious literacy is a vital pillar of character education. CCRL, or cross-cultural religious literacy, is possible along with the value of positive pluralism, authentic tolerance, and respect to human dignity. Character does not grow overnight. It is formed through small habits. Therefore, the education we build today must facilitate the development of good habits. Today, we face the phenomenon of the strawberry generation, a generation of young people who are smart, creative, and appealing, but fragile and mentally vulnerable when facing life challenges. This generation faces tough challenges such as physical and sexual violence, bullying, mental health issues like anxiety and depression, addiction to gadgets and online games, exposure to pornography through digital media, obesity, online gambling, and drug abuses. In building national character through education, the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education has taken three main initiatives. First, promoting character development through the movement of 7 Habits of Great Indonesian Children, or 7 Kebiasaan Anak Indonesia Hebat, which include waking up early, praying, exercising, having healthy and nutritious food, grit to learn, engaging in community life, and going to bed early. These habits are expected to shape personalities, which in turn form a civilization. Second, strengthening the capacity and competence of all teachers in educational institutions through guidance and counseling. Every teacher will serve as homeroom teachers, acting as a second parent to guide, support, and help develop the potential of students to become a great generation. Thus, a teacher's role is not only to teach in the classroom, but also to mentor students. Third is implementing deep learning under the principle of mindful, meaningful, and joyful learning. Learning is not only a simple process that to transfer knowledge or to accumulate knowledge, but more importantly, to construct knowledge for meaningful life, survival of students, and sustainability of the country. Only through inclusive and quality education for all, particularly in schools, madrasah, seminaries, teachers, institutions, and educational institutions for future pastors, priests, monks, preachers, imams, and others, can we foster new understanding and awareness. This includes positively acknowledging the faith of others, respecting the civilization, cultures, religion, and belief of different individual groups, and prioritizing human fraternity and peaceful, harmonious coexistence among people. Quality education and religious education can serve as a means to cultivate cross-cultural religious literacy, eliminating attitudes and behaviors that involve blaming, hating, or being hostile to followers of other religion. It also helps prevent labeling others as infidels or heretic for having different religious interpretation through belief or denominators. Education is expected to strengthen mutual understanding and mutual respect, encouraging full participation in appreciating and honoring multicultural and intercultural life. Ultimately, this calls for cooperation among various religious and belief groups, races, ethnicities, and genders to solve global and humanitarian issues such as environmental destruction, global warming, climate change, and finding solutions to end wars between nations. We believe that great change starts with small habits done consistently. These habits will only succeed if supported by the 4 educational pillars: schools, families, communities, and media. Cross-cultural religious literacy programs, such as those developed by Leimena Institute, are crucial approaches to character development in the younger generation. These programs help them discover their identity, understand others, and collaborate to build a peaceful, joyful, and prosperous society. Through cross-national, cross-cultural, and interfaith collaboration, we can raise a young generation that is not only academically intelligent, but also wise in social life. Having partnership with the spirit of gotong royong and the value of Ubuntu, we could develop an inclusive education, pluralistic religious education as a means to build civilization and civilized society. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency Minister Abdul Mu'ti. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. So the next job is a little bit difficult. So what I will do, I'm going to invite the panel to join me, and we're going to have an interactive discussion this morning. So just to begin, I would like to invite my co-moderator here. Where is Dr. Professor Sukhdevin? Is Professor Sukhdevin here? Yes, he's joining us. So Professor Maniraj Sukhdevin is a professor at the Pretoria University, and also you are co-chairing the local organizing committee, so welcome. I also want to invite the panel to join us here on the stage, Mr. Matthias Hu. Matthias is the executive director of the Lemina Institute in Indonesia. Welcome, Matthias. I also want to invite Miss Maria Lucia. Where are you, Maria? A good friend. She's executive director of Arigatou International, Geneva. I want to also invite my friend, Professor Ibrahim Saleh Al-Naimi, who is the Undersecretary of the Ministry of Education and Higher Education at the State of Qatar. Welcome, Dr. Al-Naimi. With us this morning, also Mr. Ruslan Bek. Ruslan Bek Davletov is the advisor to the President of Uzbekistan on representatives bodies and non-governmental organizations, religion and youth affairs. Welcome. I want to invite Professor Muhammad Haroon, Head of Office of Deputy Minister of Social Development, Minister of Social Development in South Africa. Professor Harun, you are most welcome. With us also, Professor Jonathan Jansen is a distinguished professor. He's here, I saw him earlier this morning. Distinguished Professor of Education here in the University of South Africa. Is Professor Jonathan with us? And then also I want to invite Reverend Professor Peter Magito, Vice Chancellor and CEO, Africa University, Kenya. So Kenya is present in the room. Reverend, join us. So we're Professor Johnson, we saw him this morning. I'm pretty sure he's around. But we can begin until maybe probably he's going to join us, right? But if he's in the room, of course, we'll be more than happy to have him. So before I turn it to my co-moderator, yes, I see Professor Jonathan is joining us. So before I turn it to my co-moderator, today our speaker will share concrete examples of how religion and religious communities are playing a vital role in shaping and delivering inclusive, quality education that ultimately support a nation's social economic development while fostering sustainable peace. This particular session will be interactive. That's why we're standing. We're going to sit in a little bit. Each panelist will speak for 3 minutes, and then we will turn it to you, the audience, to all of you. We want to hear your insight, experience, questions, and ideas. You know, I am pretty sure a number of you from here, from Africa, but those of us coming from somewhere else, by now we have adjusted to the jet lag. So we know you are awake and energized to join this conversation with all of us. So without any further ado, please, the panel, take your seats and turn it to my co-moderator for the first question.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mohammed. It's so wonderful. You can see he's a real charismatic person, and he brings everybody to life. So thank you very, very much. We are just trying to get our, those wonderful cue cards that we have to please come to the fourth, because the reason being, thank you very much. The reason being is that we've just got 1 hour, and we need to have a hard break at 11:30. So we're going to try as much as possible to incorporate everybody in that time. So just to kick it off, and this is something which I would like each of the participants to be able to speak into, and we're going to allow you, I know we're really running out of time, so please bear with us. We will try to give each speaker 3 minutes to address this fundamental question that we have, and that is, in the spirit of this conference and in the recognition of South Africa's priority on quality education, and I want to include in that Africa, we need to remember that everything we want to see accomplished, discussed at this conference, needs a solid foundation. And I think our previous keynote speaker touched on that solid foundation, that is inclusive and quality education. And therefore, from your experience, how can quality education be a driving force in addressing not only themes we are exploring here at G20 Interfaith Forum, but also the broader challenges that our world is facing? So we're moving from South Africa to Africa, and then we have a message for the world. I want to therefore invite initially Matthias Ho to address us on that question, and I'm going to ask somebody to assist us here with the cue card so that we can keep to time. Thank you very much. I love you to read those cue cards. It's going to be flash there, and that will give an indication of the time left so that we can get through all the speakers in the hour that we have. Matthias Ho.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I think if you're talking about one of the broader challenges, especially also in relation to the theme of the IF20, I think it reminds me of the UNESCO report of the future of education released in 2021, when it talks about how today's world is becoming more divided and polarized, and that the future, the pedagogy of the future should include on how to promote cooperation and solidarity. And I think as we see what's happening in the world right now, I think it's becoming more urgent that how we can teach the future generation on how to be able to reach out to people beyond their own group, whether it's their own ethnic groups, religious groups, and really try to not only build relation, but collaborations. And I think the emphasis on collaboration is very important because I think speaking also from Indonesia, a very diverse country, interfaith dialogue, for example, that has been done over the decades is very good, but sometimes it serves as a first step, because sometimes dialogue stops at dialogue, but then you need to go beyond that and then to do a concrete things, which is a collaboration with people who are different from you, because then collaboration actually produces trust, which is an important social capital. And this is why where I want to commend actually the initiative from the Minister of Primary and Secondary Education of Indonesia, Professor Abdul Muti, because his emphasis right now on the character development doesn't stop only at cognitive level, but actually now promoting a co-curricular activities in school to really help the kids on really do a concrete things in terms of what he mentioned, for example, the ability to engage in a community and build the civic responsibility. So I think that's the kind of an initiative that I think we need to see right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that insight. And now we'll turn to Maria Lucia Uribe Torres.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Well, I think to respond to this question, I think we should go back to Article 29 of the Convention on the Rights of the Child, which is the only article, I think, when it comes to human rights that really speak to what quality education is. And it has 4 points that very much relate to this conference and the work that we are trying to do. And the first part of this says that children should be able to develop fully. And what we have been seeing during the many years is that the focus of education has been on numeracy and literacy, so the cognitive aspect of the child. And we have left behind the social, emotional, and spiritual aspect of children, which are part of their holistic well-being. The second part is that education should support respect for cultural diversity, for their own cultural identity, language, values, religion, and those of the other. And we see very often in our education systems that this is not the case, because when it comes to learn about the other religion, we go to our compartmentalized approaches. Muslims go to study with Muslims, Christians with Christians, Buddhists with Buddhists, but the interfaith aspect of learning about the other is not there. The third aspect is the preparation for a responsible life in a free society, building friendships and tolerance and peace. And what we see is that in our education systems, this is not really happening, because the focus is really on in memorizing facts rather on building friendship, of understanding the other, of working with the other. And this aspect is fundamental to these questions that we have here. And the fourth aspect is the child-centered approach. Our education system has been a vertical approach. Children, they have to repeat what the adults know and supposedly know better than children. And we need to break that for a horizontal approach where we can learn collectively and construct knowledge together. So these are, when you look at quality education, and if you think if our education systems actually address this, we see that is not the case in our education systems today. And I believe that ethics education have a critical role to play in bringing together these aspects, because ethics education support bringing the other together, learning from one another, also places an important role in conscientization. And conscientization, as coined by Paulo Freire, is the ability to reflect about the social issues in our societies, the challenges that we face, but also understand what are our privileges and lack of. And ethics, it's very, if you put in a very simple way, is how children can understand that we hold the lives of others in our hands, and that what we do or do not do have an impact on ourselves and others, the very concept of Ubuntu. And that is ethics education that can be transformative. And when education is transformative, it can address the challenges of our society. If children learn what are the structural causes of violence, of injustices, and they know that they can stand up for those, we are transforming education and societies. And yes, education is the most powerful tool to transform the world, but it can also be the most powerful tool to incite violence and to create exclusion. I leave it there.
Thank you, Maria Lucia. You got a clap, Maria. You did a wonderful job, obviously. Now I want to turn it to Professor Ibrahim Al-Naimi. Professor Ibrahim, the answer to the overall arching question.
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed. Good morning, everyone. I'm really happy to be part of this panel. My first two colleagues who talked, I think they covered very important part of this discussion this morning, but I'd like to focus on the education and interfaith, and I think we all care about the SDGs, and we teach these to our kids in schools regularly and in our universities, but we really must focus more on how important the interfaith to being included into education. So the education must include moral, ethical, and spiritual growth. Faith traditions provide timeless wisdom and justice, peace, and compassion, as we see in the Islamic and biblical teachings that encourage knowledge and guidance. So interfaith fosters shared values, breaks down stereotypes, and builds empathy, foundations for global citizenship and social cohesion. So no kid left behind is important message to go through all over the world. In my country, Qatar, we care so much about providing education for the needy people around the world. So we have education above all. It's an organization led by Her Highness Sheikh Hamouza bint Nasser in Qatar. And the target is to educate 60 million needy kids all around the world. We already achieved about 15 million kids have been provided very good education in their countries, rural and in different parts of the world, rural country areas and different parts of the world. So we care a lot about providing education that also meets that goes hand in hand with the religious and faith in these parts of countries. So we are proud of what we're doing. We in Qatar we provide our students. All students are taught during the K-12 education the importance of interfaith, and we have also some courses at the level of universities, required courses in dialogue of civilization. I think I'm going to stop here and I'll be happy to comment more on this issue.
Thank you so much. Thank you. You know, I really impressed by how our speaker just stick to these 3 minutes, right? So you're not even raising the cup. Yeah, it's amazing, right?
You're not only charismatic, but I think they fear you as well.
So, Professor Muhammad Haroon, it's 3 minutes for the opening question.
Thank you very much. And Dumelang, goeiemorgen, good morning to each of you. To our guests from outside, I'm from Cape Town. We welcome you here, and we hope we will continue to have an interactive relationship in terms of understanding. So my mere fact in basically saying that is part of our education. In other words, we need to acknowledge the other. And through the notion of Ubuntu, we accept one another for who we are. Having said that, I think our educational system seems to have become lopsided in the South African arena for several reasons. And that is the focus on STEM rather than on moral, social education. Points that have been raised, the issue of ethical leadership seems to be missing within our schooling and even university systems. So that is one dimension that we need to try to bring back to ensure that the future generation remain ethical and morally minded. Speaking about the notion of moral mindedness, I think the notion of Ubuntu really reinforces that. But even that concept, despite the fact that we have used it for this conference, despite the fact that we know about it, in our own society, our community has neglected it in different ways. The crime that we see, the murders that take place, the GBV that take place. So the question is, what has happened to quality education? So in a sense, quality education had been sacrificed by other elements that you and I need to counter. What we see in the world, what we see in Gaza, the genocide and elsewhere, is a sad indictment of us as a religious community. All of us as believers, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Hindu, whether you're Buddhist, we basically subscribe to the notion of respecting one another. And we heard earlier too, some of the other guests underlying the fact that we need to respect one another. Love thy neighbor. But like the early moderator had said yesterday, what is love? And how do we express it? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I think, again, we are constantly coming through the discussions, the issues on morals, ethics, and ethical leadership. And I think you have just touched on something, I think, which is important, is the teachers should also have ethics in how they teach. Our next speaker that we have is Professor Peter Mageto, who is the Vice Chancellor and CEO of the Africa University in Kenya. Professor Peter.
Hello. Yeah, I just want to make a correction there. I'm from Kenya, but I am a Vice Chancellor, CEO for Africa University in Zimbabwe. Thank you. Yeah, they have told me that they have adjusted my few seconds of changing. I love higher education, but I love faith. My foundation starts from faith. I find myself running institutions in some way that have a very clear link with faith. I've been in higher education management for over 20 years, ranging from Kenya, Rwanda, and now Zimbabwe. Africa University is a good model as far as the issues of social cohesion and the power of education is concerned. The founders of this university, one from Angola, another one from Liberia, found a home for the university in Zimbabwe. That cohesion is brought within a given campus whereby every student joining the university must engage himself or herself in an intensive language because we believe that language is oppression in some way. Therefore, the first year of your campus life, you either engage in English, French, Portuguese. Now we have introduced Swahili and Arabic. Why? Because the essence of who we should be as human beings is again derived in our core values: God-fearing, integrity, professionalism, academic excellency, Ubuntu, and diversity. These are our core values. While everyone speaks about ethical leadership is not found in white and black. It is found in character. And the core essence then of our university as a model is how do we cultivate transformative leaders for the continent of Africa. One way we do it is for us to be sure that when we recruit you to our university, we already know the country and the context where we are recruiting you from. And therefore, we spend more time profiling each country in the continent for us to be able to recruit exactly the kind of individual we could like to cultivate leadership and send you back to your home country. We have noted with great interest that for the last 32 years of the existence of this university, we are creating impact. I say we are creating impact because I can testify from one country to another the kind of leaders we have already created. The promoters of the university believed in the holistic education. Take care of the mind, take care of the soul, take care of the body. Agriculture is our leading program, followed by a religious degree in theology, then education. We continue to embrace the fact that the future does not belong to yesterday. It belongs to the generation we are discussing of here. And then how do we move forward? One, we continue to work collaboratively. We work with partners from all over the world in those areas that enhance peace, quality education, quality living, and quality character. I must stop.
Thank you.
All right, I think Professor Peters brought us back to the overarching concept of this whole interfaith forum is the issue of Ubuntu. And I think the concept of Ubuntu plays a significant role in education. And then the next speaker we have is Professor Jonathan Jansen. He used to be my previous boss at the University of the Free State. He used to be the Vice Chancellor there. And what a privilege to have Professor Jonathan here this morning addressing us. Professor Jonathan.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I grew up in a religious, evangelical, fundamentalist church, which means that we were right and all of you were wrong. Today I work in a very, very challenged, dysfunctional school in the mornings, and then at Stellenbosch University in the afternoon for my paid job. And so what I share with you about values and education is not something I read in a book. It is something I struggle with every single day in South Africa. Now, the catastrophic event in this historical moment is the genocide in Gaza. It's the most televised war, they say, in history, from which all our children learn about war, but also about silence and complicity. It is also a test of the faith community's commitment to going beyond easy words like condemn, withdraw, and end the war. Think about this for a moment about children. And if you wish, in the thematic focus of the conference, think about hunger, that more than 30,000 children have been killed or maimed by the Israeli government. Now, what is interesting is that Jesus was particularly harsh on this matter. I think Jesus was a pacifist, except when it came to hurting kids. Because it says in my old King James Bible, it would be better for you if they put a bag of cement around your neck, this is hectic language, and you be cast into the sea, than if you offend one of these little ones, children. Luke 17 in more than one of the Gospels. Unless, of course, this injunction does not include Palestinian children. But on the Gaza conflict, the faith community is itself afflicted. I hear my brothers and sisters throwing Genesis 12 at me, he who curses Israel will be cursed. Interpreted by some as a timeless principle that also apparently covers the Netanyahu government. And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, the hypocrisy Your hypocrisy of telling us to teach values to children is so unsettling. So my question to this audience is a very simple one. It's the elephant in the room. What does it mean to teach children about shared and shaping values in the shadow of a genocide?
So, thank you so much, Professor Jonathan, and you asked the audience a question, so I'm not going to turn it to the audience now. But the good news, we're doing very well, my co-moderator, in terms of time, right? So what we're going to do, we're going to have a second round of questions to the panel, and then we're going to come to you. Yes, I'm gonna come to Mr. David Tof as well, to speak for 3 minutes as well. Mr. David Tof, you are advising the president of Uzbekistan on representatives bodies, non-government organizations, religion, and youth. So you have a very big profile. So tell us, answering the first question. You want to do it from the podium? Yes, you can do it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muhammad Al-Sanusi. Very honored to be here. Sorry if it's going to take more than 3 minutes, but I'm going to share the experience of Uzbekistan on issues that you are discussing here today, and wider than education and including social cohesion. Because the Uzbekistan, 38 million people, majority Muslim, historically has been a stable place for ages, 3 millennia of statehood of Uzbekistan, predominantly no conflicts on the religious issues. And all the other religions, even before Islam, Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, Judaism, Christianity, all coexisted peacefully in our territory. And these are really fundamental pillars why we have this stable society. Because of this history, people know this, it is in their blood, it is in their DNA, this is an order, and they've known each other for ages. But we're not taking this for granted because society is changing. Social media and religious radicalism and extremism is infiltrating. So there is a really big, powerful policy by the state, powerful policy of our President Mirziyoyev, who says that everybody should coexist peacefully. And as Max Weber stated, there is only state with the power to practice use of force legitimately. So we have these kind of institutions that guarantee the stability of the society. And the legislation we passed recently, the concept of ensuring freedom of conscience, where we established clear principles and boundaries for the interaction between individuals, between religious institutions. So everything is clear-cut, put in the legislation, and the institutions, they implement these ideas. Today, Uzbekistan is home to 130 nationalities and 16 religious confessions, 11 Christian denominations. And for the last 7 years, 23 new churches, Christian churches, were opened in Uzbekistan, meeting the needs of people who live in our territory. Despite that, 1.1% of the population are Christians. Also, in terms of education, we have 14 Islamic educational institutions, Orthodox and Pentecostal seminaries, the Mir Arab and Kukaldash Madrasa, with their 5th-century history, and our very well-respected Shaykh al-Islam from Azerbaijan, he's also graduated from this 500-years-old century madrasa. Best regards to His Excellency. And the public education, given the nationalities that we have, public education is provided in 7 languages and 10 languages of newspapers and media. Political representation is very important. 13% of all members of parliament are from minorities. We don't use the term national minorities in Uzbekistan. They are citizens with the the power with the same rights and obligations. So no term is national minorities is used
Great.
in our country. 5,000 civil servants, they're all from 35 different ethnic groups. So the main idea that I want to convey to you today is that stability can be, and interface and inter-ethnic harmony can be achieved if there is a powerful institution, if the NGO that come together and the people, and that's possible. And we can say that Uzbekistan has done that. But nobody is ideal, no society is ideal. But the positivity starts when we accept that we are different and it's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dave Latov, for your remarks here. I appreciate it. So I'm going to go back and continue our talk show style here again and come back to you, Professor Ibrahim Al-Naimi, asking you a question regarding, the young MCs, when he introduced our panel, he said, it's going to focus on youth. So I know that you also, as the president of the Doha International Center for Interfaith Dialogue, and you pay a lot of attention to youth and youth inclusion. So, but still we see that there is really a lack of real opportunities for leadership and influence for youth. What are the measures that you are doing basically to provide that leadership to youth?
In my center, we always focus on providing a chance for the youth and women to participate in different.
I think use the other mic.
It's not
yes.
working. Mm-hmm. So we always encourage our youth and the women, as I said, to be part of our activities. This year we held a whole academic year program for the youth at 5 universities in Qatar to have like several kind of activities, like workshops, trips together. So we try to bring the young graduates or about to graduate students to meet and to participate in many activities and give them a chance to know each other and to be involved in the interfaith. Then after that, we normally include them into our conferences and our workshops and discussions. We are also encourage them. We take them abroad to have some camps internationally, and we already had some students in different countries around the world to do this interfaith activity. So
I remember, Dr. Naimi, your center brought about 50 girls to the United States, exposing them to different culture.
Exactly. And we held a conference in Doha where we invited about 50 boys and girls from all over the world with the support of the Sterling Foundation, as I recall, and
Akwe.
And Akwe, exactly.
Yeah.
So we keep doing this. We encourage the kids to come to Qatar, and Qatar in general supports these kind of activities, either through our center or through Qatar Foundation or through Doha Forum. We always encourage the youth to participate in our activities.
Thank you so much.
I think there are some lessons that we can learn from what you have endorsed and the progress you have made. But similar thing, I think, with Mr. Matthews Ho. I think you're also busy with a number of projects and flagship projects. Maybe you'd like to share with us some of the lessons that we can learn from the successes, but I also want to add something else to that. What are some of the challenges that we can work through as well as you speak about the successes of your projects at the same time?
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think I'm going to refer to a program actually that the Minister Mukti from Indonesia mentioned in his remarks about the cross-cultural religious literacy and why he mentioned that is at the core of the character development program as well in Indonesia. So what we mean by cross-cultural religious literacy is the program that was launched about 4 years ago, 2021. So the idea of the program is actually very simple. It was actually developed as a teacher training program. The idea is that how we can develop the competencies of the people to be able to build social trust, build relation, collaboration in a diverse society. So the framework of the competency says that, and we are talking about Indonesia, which is, according to a survey, one of the most religious country in the world, with 280 million people, 87% Muslims. We have more than 1,000 ethnicities and more than 600 languages, so it's very diverse. So the framework says that, first of all, we need to have a competency to understand ourselves, especially our own belief, if we are a religious person, because oftentimes many of the survey, the data says that someone who is an extremist, for example, oftentimes the person doesn't really understand the religion well, but being manipulated by certain ideology. And secondly, the person, we also need to understand the belief of other people, but according to the view of that person. So we need to build that empathy and to understand, for example, if I'm Christian, I want to understand Islam, I need to take, for example, to my brother Muhammad here. And then thirdly, very importantly, we shouldn't stop at simply knowing one another. We need to learn on how to collaborate. We need to learn how to collaborate even though we are different, and we will remain different after that. Now, this is very tricky because oftentimes the suspicion between people who are different is that because of the fear of proselytization. So this program basically developed into a teacher's training program that has basically attracted, we've trained about 3,000 teachers per year. So now we have more than 10,000 teachers. We began with the madrasah Muslim teachers, and then now includes Christian, Buddhist, Hindus, and others as well. So I think the challenge is that it's about building trust, because I think the suspicion always continues, especially because the world is becoming more polarized. So how the program is trying to build the credibility and building the trust between the people, which is very important, especially in a diverse society, is the foundation of the social cohesion.
Trust is the foundation. I completely agree with that. Yes or no question. Are you aware of any such program in the world, cross-cultural literacy program?
What I can say is that right now in ASEAN, the Association Southeast Asian Nation, in their new vision and strategy for the next 20 years, now they included cross-cultural religious literacy.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. So you impacted the regional entity, which is ASEAN.
Well, we are trying to learn from one another.
That's good. That's good. Good to know. You can see, he's very powerful. Maria, I think also in Arigatou you have a similar kind of initiative. So if you want to share with us that initiative and how effective it is.
Thank you. Yes, so in Arigatou International, we have been pioneering and also trying to develop this concept of ethics education. And so we have a framework and a whole methodology approach that we have been using in more than 40 countries around the world during the last 20 years. And the framework has 4 particular areas. It's a framework that is anchored on children's rights, and that means that the child is at the center, that the pedagogy is not vertical, it's horizontal, and that we see children as individuals in their own right. We also have the aspect of ethics and values, and I think it's important because you mentioned this, Mohammed, in the beginning, that the panel is about how, by teaching values, and our belief is that we cannot teach values. We can nurture the ability of children to uptake and use values, but when we say we teach values, we turn to assess children in right and wrong. You are respectful or you are not. And what we need is more ethical thinking in children, for them to understand what the consequences of their actions are on others, so how they practice respect for others, because they know this has an impact on others. So we, of course, try that during the program, children experience living those values, but the focus is really on the critical thinking of children, in how children understand and become more conscious about the practice of those values and the consequences of others.
You know, critical thinking is so critical. I completely agree with you. But again, you know, the religious virtues are so critical. You know, when I travel around the world, I mean, I always tell my friend from the LDS church, I'm just impressed by the volunteers, the missionaries. They have these religious virtues there in a young age. I was in Indonesia, and we visited a small city called Bogor, which is an hour, this is last month, which is an hour and a half from Jakarta. And then I found these young people from the LDS church serving in Indonesia, in Bogor, a small city. And, you know, it's that religious virtues is so critical. And I think Professor Jonathan would agree with me as an evangelical. So we have to teach our children our religious virtues, which is calling for all of these that we're discussing here, with its equality, solidarity, education, and all of that.
Mohammed, but if I can,
but thank you. I mean, we can come back to that.
But just to this, because the fact that you nurture ethics doesn't mean that you are not allowing the children to learn those values, but you do it in a critical way. Because if you tell children you have to be respectful, but you are not role modeling respect for others, they will not learn.
Okay. All right. So that's good. You know, Maria, you know, I definitely respect your point of view, but I want to move on.
I think there's a pair of boxing gloves somewhere. We can have a tournament here on, yes. Can we teach values? Can we teach values? No, I think that's what it is sometimes all about. You know, we sometimes gather in such ways, and we always want to agree with each other, but it's good sometimes just to hear the critical element that comes through these discussions, and for me that is important. I want to turn our attention now to maybe Professor Harun, and I think you have also been involved at different universities. I also recall your time at the University of Botswana when you were there. What would you say are some of the standout programs your organization has led that successfully integrated interfaith dialogue into education, simply to foster the concept of a social cohesion? We've heard a lot of the discussions thus far. Maybe just from your perspective?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, apart from the, let me just quickly comment on the South African scenario that we are in from where I am, is that the government has set up a national youth development agency as a way of fostering or empowering, of changing the status of the youth, specifically within the South African setting. That said, let me just go back to Botswana, where I was for 20 years. And of course, Botswana compared to South Africa, a very small population, and so more manageable, if one can describe it in that way. And as a result of that, there has been, at the University of Botswana, where I taught, there have been, of course, taught in the Department of Theology and Religious Studies. I taught a course in religion development, where I applied Catherine Marshall, some of her books, that basically help to give us a different understanding of, first of all, interfaith relations or interreligious relations. Secondly, the type of cooperation that we have. And thirdly, in terms of the challenges that they encounter to do it collectively as a group. Of course, it was not necessarily successful at all levels, but the fact of the matter is that the mere fact that they become conscious of their religious identity and working, of course, mainly Christians and Muslims within that setting, so there has been that camaraderie of sorts that helped to foster a better understanding. So there has been a forum that was created to invite different individuals from different religious communities to address the student crowd. And I think that in itself is an important educational method in order to reach out to individuals who are ill-informed about the other religious traditions. And I think that understanding needs to be cultivated, or that type of forum needs to be expanded, so at least we can help to create a better understanding, a better respect for one another.
Great.
Now, Professor Jonathan Jansen was a very controversial figure. I recall at the University of Free State, there was a saying that the government sector of education will always look at the latest article in the Sunday Times to read what Professor Jansen said about education before they make any decisions and go into their meetings. So, Professor Jansen, I think this is a very apt question for you. We frequently speak about the importance of youth inclusion, and I'm aware you've done a lot of work among the primary schools and successful in many of those instances, but they still lack real opportunities for leadership and influence. How can education systems and education policy help create space for youth leadership, especially also considering our discussion here on peace and equity?
Thank you so much. I want to say something else before I dive into that. I'm a curriculum theorist, so all of my life I study things that can and cannot be taught. And I just want to agree with my colleague on the far side there. You can't actually teach values if by teaching values you mean a teacher standing up with a prepared curriculum and telling kids what is right and wrong. That is indoctrination. That is not education. It's very important to distinguish. I don't care whether you're Christian, Muslim, or Jewish. If you keep telling people what to do, okay, you are in fact indoctrinating them. You see, values is something that you teach by modeling the appropriate behavior. Let me give you an example. If you have a panel like this one with 9 men and 1 woman, you are teaching values. Whether you like it or not, you are teaching values. And children watch us all the time. I didn't have to teach my children that putting your hands on somebody else's body, corporal punishment, is wrong. I never did that. I taught them by loving them, by embracing them. That doesn't mean I didn't discipline them. But they learned early on that to force your hand on somebody else, and see, you're not going to applaud now because all of you beat your kids. You know? So suddenly you're quiet. I didn't teach them what to do. I showed them how to do. You are in a country, visitors, that has the most beautiful constitution with the most corrupt government. Everybody steals. If you don't steal in this country, they think there's something wrong with you. And if we had more Tutus and Mandelas, more Shongwes, Gertrude Shongwes, more people who, in the power of their example, whether it's been in your home, your mosque, your church, your temple, demonstrated how to live instead of putting things, force-feeding people with values, then I think we have a different country and a different world.
Thank you so much, Professor Jonathan. So, before I make the disclaimer, I want to come to you, Dave Iltoff, and if you can share with us within maybe a minute or so, what are the policies that your government is doing to promote, quality education and inclusion, all of that in Uzbekistan?
Thank you very much. Education. Public education in Uzbekistan is free, and it's compulsory for 11 years. And religious studies, interethnic, these topics are included in the curriculum. We have a special subject called upbringing, and you start. So this is a unique methodology for private and public schools. It is same approach. So there is a one big standard, and teachers must know the contents of this subject. So they teach starting from 1st grade until 11th grade. So 11 years of upbringing, and we put into this subject a lot of ideas, values. Even if you can't teach them, we're trying to do that. through different means. Of course, there are methodologies, and about the history of religion, without any favoritism in the religious approaches. We are a Muslim country, but the society is Muslim, but the state is secular. So I think this is one of the greatest ideas, that when you have secular state, it is only within this political system that you can guarantee the religious rights without any exclusion and without any favoritism or discrimination.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy you brought that notion of upbringing, which is really so critical. I mean, if you look into the Muslim world, majority of the Ministry of Education in the Muslim world, they call them Wazarat al-Tarbiyya wa al-Ta'aleem, education and upbringing, right? That's the majority of the educational ministry in the Muslim world. They call them, so the upbringing is so critical. You can give that scientific knowledge, but the upbringing is so critical. Now, I think we're doing very good in time. We have 18 minutes to close this session, and we are going to come to you to ask questions. But we're going to prioritize. Professor Jonathan, I said I'm going to make a disclaimer that we acknowledge you have only one woman in this panel. But this is not, you can't blame my colleague and I, right? But also to say that we have one woman supposed to be in the panel, but she declined as well, or she was not able to come here according to the old schedule. But that's not the excuse. Right now, I want to prioritize the women in the room. The woman in the room, raise your hand, you will get the priority of asking question, commenting. I'm taking from Bani de Gaulle. I am talking, yes, we're going to come back to Peter. So get ready. Get ready. The women are prioritized. But let's hear from Peter first, and then we'll come back to you.
Thank you very, very much.
Yes, we'll come to you.
The ladies are really special.
Yes.
And we haven't forgotten you, just that the way the panel was put together, yes. But to Professor Peter, education, we always have said, is a great equalizer. Now, from your context and some of the challenges that you may have faced, what are faith communities in your context? How are they bridging these gaps and ensuring inclusive, quality education for all?
From where I sit, and I can assure all the ladies in the room that for the last 10 years, my university has been leading with more female students, either in recruitment, retention, and graduation.
Wonderful.
And I've seen more women student leaders taking the presidents of the student councils. Within the religious interaction on campus, this is real. Where there are more women, there's more spiritual interaction, interestingly, than the other way around. And what I have realized with these leaders of the future, the greatest interest, it comes from where they come from. They come to campus with their religious connotations, and we work closely with them because they desire to go back. One of the key things that happens in our recruitment, you need to be recruited through your religious community, a commendation of some type, whether you are coming from Islam, from one of the indigenous communities, you are coming from wherever you are coming from. Why do we do so? Because we believe that faith is the foundation of not just character, but of holistic living. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What we have done recently, the last few years, is that we have gone into the specifics that make us one. And therefore, we spend more time. We have a center of excellence around peace and reconciliation and governance. We have a center for child rights and childhood studies. We have different centers that they enhance the well-being, not just of students, but because of the way we link to communities. And I believe that this is what the future leaders are looking for.
No, thank you very much. You can see, ladies, you are not forgotten. You lead society, in many respects. I come back to my co-host, and we're going to give the opportunities to the ladies first to ask questions.
Yes, 15 minutes. 15 minutes for the ladies. Raise your hand. I want to start with...
We have 4 sections, maybe 1 section from each.
Okay.
And it's becoming level. There's 1 hand at the back.
Okay,
there.
so let's begin with you, Bani. Bani, you have... Yes, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much. My name is Bani Dugal, and I represent the Baha'i international community to the UN. I want to point out the excellent work that Maria Lucia and her colleagues are doing in fostering these values, etc. And I don't think it's always indoctrination. Not every child, unfortunately, has a strong, loving parent, and but learning together with each other is the way they learn to be good human beings and inclusive. My question is for Mr. Davletov and also Mr. Naimi. I think the message for building an inclusive society comes from the top, and political will is very important for that. And I think you demonstrated that you may have a largely Islamic society, but you foster diversity and welcome all religions, all communities. But that decision is made at the highest levels to do that, and then the policies trickle down. Of course, it's a responsibility of every individual as well, and the community and the institutions together. So how do you, I've forgotten my question.
Yes, the question is clear. Thank you, Bani.
But the question is, what are the good examples that you can point to from each of your countries in this regard?
All right, that's the policy question. So let's go to the first row there. No lady there. I'm gonna come to you.
The
there.
red is here, sir.
Okay, we'll come to you. Yes,
right.
yes.
Thank you so much. My name is Grace Chirongo, and just
Grace.
to add from Malawi, and just to add on women being on the panel, we'd also like to request the youth themselves, because we are talking about the issues of education. We need the youth to speak for themselves. You literally mentioned about youth taking some activities. We needed those activities to be recited by the youth themselves. So my question here is, in the world where digital access is growing, especially the issues of AI, how can we ensure that literacy, particularly reading for meaningful and empathy, remains a core priority in education system? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate that. So yes, here my sister here. She needs the mic. Yes.
Morning, it's Lynn Swain, and I'm from Sambarata Leadership Institute and on the Faith and Media Initiative. What I have heard here has been impressive in terms of its focus and the fact that values lie at the core of all of the endeavors. I haven't heard anything around the neuroscience side of it, because I think it's important. I'm sitting here bursting with passion because it cuts through when people understand basics, about their brain, become self-aware, and then see how they fall on other people's brains. When they understand that, it automatically leads to a desire to be able to regulate themselves. And there's such simple techniques that one can teach them out of that. And so the neuroscience of trust, for example, it's simple and it cuts through so much. My question therefore is anyone integrating that? Is this a multidisciplinary approach?
Got it. Thank you so much. So we're going to go to the last row. And my sister, yes, we're doing it. 1, 2, 3, 4. My sister, please. Yes, you have the mic.
Okay, it's on.
It's working. Yes, please.
Thank you so much. My first question goes to Professor Johnson. we've adopted worldview philosophies and 18th century theories that has influenced our political leaders. And my concern is at the universities, the children in poor universities are influenced by Karl Marx theory, and that distort their worldview and the beauty of enjoying education. So, and then what are we expecting from our leaders? Because we are still using 18th century curriculum, and we are sitting here and there is no policy engagement around the localization of our own theories. What kind of leaders are we producing that are busy benchmarking from Karl Marx? And then the minority, you will never find an elite who owns a tree farming in the indigenous community in those black poor universities. And secondly, you're talking about women. I did not see a traditional leader there in your panel, and we are talking about integrating culture and religion. So, and the final one is that I haven't heard about advocacy and policy engagement. It's like it's a nice coffee chat, we are chatting, but what are we doing after this in terms of advocacy and policy engagement? And that is why our social cohesion dialogues become like a talk show, because there is no legislative framework. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, thank you, I appreciate it. The challenge is we have 7 minutes to close this panel. But I want to just acknowledge and give the mic to my sister here from the indigenous communities. She has been raising her hand. Let's hear from you, and then we come back to our panel. And I just ask your forgiveness, all of you. I know that there are a number of hands up, but we have other opportunities. You have parallel sessions, so you can speak. But please, sister.
My name is Queen Nomusa Jwaha Mahlangu from the Ndebele clan, Nzunza Nation, under Bongo II, who is also an ambassador for AWAPA. My question is, how do we go back to our roots where we had spiritual education? Because in our time, there used to be Bible studies, even at school, which is more spiritual. Now we are feeding the mind, feeding the brain, feeding the body, but we are not feeding the spirit at a very young age. How do we go back to that?
Thank you so much. So, Professor, let's hear from the panel.
Yeah, I think I can answer all the questions.
Answer all that will save us a lot of time, by the way.
I'm that good, I can answer all the questions.
Yes, that will save us a lot of time.
All right, now thank you very much for your questions. I think they are very relevant questions, and I think we got to learn a lot from the questions that have come out and how we can address this in future IF20 conferences. And thank you very much for your contributions. Maybe the first question, if I can refer to my sister on the left, and she can respond to that in a minute or two.
Yes, just 1 minute.
I would actually like to respond to the neuroscience question, if you don't mind. We are working on the neuroscience, particularly in early childhood. The brain of the child in the first 3 years of life is critical. It's the organ that is developing fast. 1 million neural connections per second happen in the first 3 years of life. And that means that this is the best opportunity to nurture children. It's the best opportunity for children to learn about the other. We know that when the children are 18 months old, they already identify racial clues, and they're able to develop prejudices by the age of 4 years. And this is critical. Investment in early childhood is not happening in the world. It's deprioritized. So investment in early childhood, based on the neuroscience of what happens in the brain of the child at this early year, is important. We know that when social-emotional learning happens in this year, there is an 11 return on $1 investment that is continued in the life cycle. So this is very critical. On policies and advocacy, we're working with 6 ministries of education on our ethics education approach. And what we want is the ministries of education themselves advocate by themselves. It's not us coming to them. So we work with them, but internally, they need to do their work to get more budgets allocated, to get more investment. So otherwise, we fall in this trap on looking for funding from outside to be able to develop this endogenous learning and culturally driven learning from their own societies.
Thank you so much, Maria.
Thank you. Well, she's answered 2 of the questions. Thank you very, very much for that. I'm not too sure you also addressed the question to Professor Al-Naimi?
Yes. Yes, and Naimi had a policy question, yes.
Yes.
I think you mentioned about Qatar. How Qatar provides education, very quality, high quality education, since its inception, starting maybe in the 40s and 50s of last century. We provide education to our kids, to all Qatari students, and all expats in Qatar. All their kids are taught the quality education. It's not only that. We provide education for refugees in Syria, in Sudan, in Yemen. And we have an institution called Reach Out to Asia, where we provided all the support for those refugees in the Asian countries. So Qatar have been, throughout the years, providing quality education. We are Qatar Education. The K-12 is one of the top 10 in the world. And the higher education, I think you're probably aware of we have about 30 or more international universities, among them Texas A&M, Cornell, Carnegie Mellon, top universities, besides the local universities. So we care about education. And I'd like to comment on what my sisters mentioned here about we provide spiritual education. We teach Islamic studies to our kids, to Qataris, and to Muslims. The non-Muslims are not, it's not mandatory on them to study Islamic education, but if they want to, they can, but it's not mandatory. It's only mandatory to the Muslim students and the Qatari students.
I think there's also a very strong move towards indigenous knowledge systems education. And it's something that we are engaging with very regularly. We are talking to other institutions about indigenous knowledge systems. We have Professor Matola Moshekha here. We have from the Kara Institute. We have colleagues here from the Freedom Park who are engaging in these things. And so from the universities as well, we are engaging with that. But I think my sister Barney had a question for 3 people, but we're going to have to move on. And I think the burning question now was to Professor Jonathan Jansen that come from my sister. And you always put him on the hot spot, so let's hear what he has to say.
Well, let me just be clear about where I stand on this. I don't believe, ma'am, respectfully, that public schools, underline public, should be teaching Bible study. That's nonsense. Public schools serve the public, and in the schools just around Cape Town, in every school there are Muslim kids, there are Christian kids, there are Jewish kids, and there are kids who don't believe. All of them must be respected according to our constitution. Teach the Bible at home, teach the mosque. In the mosque, teach kids the Quran. But a public school is a public school, okay? And this notion of running the school assembly on a Monday morning as if it's an extension of church on a Sunday is wrong, as far as I'm concerned. To my colleague over there, I just want to say it would be really nice, in my view, if universities thought about Karl Marx, but they don't. I don't know where you got that information. They don't. What you see in both schools and universities is a narrowing down of the purposes of education around exams. It's just to get like a sausage machine to get the kids from one point to another point, right, so that the schools and the government can brag. Look at our matric results. Look at our grade 12 results. It's devoid of values. It's devoid of content. It's devoid of these deeper meanings, indigenous meanings, for example, which I agree with you, is sorely lacking in our curricula and so on and so forth. So that is the problem that we sit with. But I go back to, and then again, when you talk about neuroscience, for example, my son is a psychologist in another country. They do neuroscience every single day. They identify kids with ADHD and other kinds of things. That's fine. But in a country where just feeding the kids is a problem, where in KwaZulu-Natal province, the MEC of Education has been accused of stealing money from the school nutrition program. Now, I understand corruption. It's fine. But how the hell do you steal from children? How do you take the food out of their mouths? So when you're dealing with these very basic skills of survival,
right?
Okay, then coding and robotics, I love it, by the way. AI, neuroscience, is a bit of a stretch. Doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. But when you pose those questions, ask yourself this question: which children are we talking about?
Thank you so much. You know, Professor Jonathan, I mean, we could hear from you the entire afternoon. Thank you so much. But give the mic to Brother Peter, Reverend Peter. You know, Peter, you have 30 seconds, basically, because you have some burning things to say. But 30 seconds, please. I need to conclude.
The 10 second.
Okay, thank you.
I am still interested in the leaders of the future. The leaders of the future are raising different questions, and we must change in the manner we address these leaders. That's why I love the aspect of the digital natives.
Yeah.
I heard it from the young person at the back there. Until we embrace the digital technologies that are coming up and ask ourselves, how ready? Yesterday we were discussing this in the religious community, but how ready are we as religious communities in engaging the digital natives to shape their futures?
Thank you so much. Give it to Professor Harun. Professor Harun, if you have a specific policy recommendation to the G20 forum in 30 seconds.
Well, I don't have a policy, but I would like to just talk about a theory.
Okay.
And I think one of the things are that some of the theories are pretty archaic and not applicable. And so we need to think beyond and outside the box. And related to that is the issue of we have become so dependent upon Eurocentric notions of life that the Afrocentric notion has disappeared. And so we need to reset and balance our lives in terms of having a better perspective of ourselves through our own lenses instead of through the lens of others. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You know, Professor Naimi, I think you have an announcement for everybody. So that's why I'll give you 10 seconds.
I just want to answer the lady in the back when she talked about the youth and the AI. Our next conference, we held a biannual conference in Doha, DICID, Doha International Center for Interfaith Dialogue. Our next conference will be in April 2026, and it's going to be on AI, or the new technologies, and interfaith. And I fully agree that education and interfaith should go hand in hand. We should not separate them.
Thank you.
Thank you. You are all welcome to this conference.
Oh, that's an invitation to everybody?
Yeah, they're all welcome. They want to. We can announce it, and
so you guys have an invitation to the Doha
be happy
conference
to have you
year.
at our conference. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Matthias, 30 seconds. 30 seconds. I need to wrap up.
Well, thank you. I just want to respond quickly to one of the questions about advocacy. I think I can identify with the frustration over many conferences that I attended as well. But then it dawned on me that the responsibility to do the policy advocacy is not on the conference or the organizer, but it's on me. So now what I'm seeing is that since I believe what the IF20 is doing, then my responsibility is how Indonesia can be part of the IF20 movement to make a policy change.
Right.
And then secondly, is that sometimes when we think about advocacy, we think rather negatively in relation with the government. But I think our approach is that we believe there are always good people in the government, so that how we can work with those people to make the policy change.
Thank you so much. Devil Tiff, any 30-second concluding remarks?
answering the question of Ms. Bani, political will is really, the fact prima facie, because I just told you about the 23 churches that have been opened in Uzbekistan for the last 7 years. Why I say 7 years? Because 9 years ago, we've been having new president. He came to power and the priorities changed. And the dialogue with the nation